All right, rep number 2. You ready for rep number 2? We're gonna have Adrian read it. So Adrian, you're gonna read scenario number 2, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so scenario number 2. It's 6 a.m. and you jump out of your bed. You realize that you have a huge meeting today and you need to wake up at 5:30 a.m. to prepare for the meeting. You rush out of your bed and throw your clothes on as fast as you can. You still find time to get a big bowl of cereal because that is like your morning coffee. The day just isn't the same without it. You normally take some time to read your Bible and pray in the morning, but because you are late, you just listen to some worship music while you get ready. You rehearse everything you want to say for your 7 o'clock meeting on your way to work. You get to the office feeling nervous and unprepared, but you give it your best shot. Okay. So some behaviors that I identify is that, so this person has a meeting and they were supposed to wake up at 5:30, so they are tardy. So the behavior, I guess, is that they are late or they're tardy. And then they find time to get a big bowl of cereal because they feel like that's their coffee. And I guess that's the thing that helps wake them up in the morning. But it's probably something they could have foregone because they're late. So there may be something going on here with prioritizing. And so that's I'm not sure if that falls into a skill or behavior or if that's one of those things that overlap. And then they take some time to read. They normally take time to read their Bible and pray in the morning. So they are committed to their spiritual growth. So that seems to be a behavior that they are growing spiritually. But because they don't have time this morning, that's another way of prioritizing. Maybe they missed it with the coffee or missed it with the bowl of cereal, but they decided that they would listen to worship music. So they are still trying to supplement what they're lacking. So I would say that they did. That's another example of prioritizing. Or what would you call that? If they replace what they would normally do for.
So it is prioritizing, but there's something else there too.
Yes.
And they replaced it. Like, I can't do this, but let me try to do this instead. I
would say, I still feel like that falls on their ability to prioritize. So they listen to the worship music and then they rehearse. So they are still finding time, capitalizing on the moments that they do have. So they know how to make the best, but if I put that into one succinct term, what would you call that?
It's a good question.
Resourceful with the time?
Maybe that's kind of what I was thinking.
Resourceful. You said the word. You said capitalization. You said capitalize, and I said capitalization.
There you go.
Like, whatever I got to do, it's going to be the best in that moment.
With the time that I have.
Yep.
So yeah, and then they get to the office, they're nervous, but they give it their best. And so I think, again, we can see, a bit of optimism in this person. They didn't leave feeling defeated. They're just very optimistic. So yeah. Now, some of the skills that I would associate with this is time management. We don't know why this person woke up later. It could have been something with their devices, could have gone off.
Yep.
So they could have perhaps prepared better. So some better preparation as far as what devices you're using, because your alarm clock could have been something could have come undone, or your phone could have died. And, just making sure that those steps were taken. So just a skill of preparation, making sure you had a backup plan. And I think prioritizing is the skill that overlaps. They could have decided not to eat the cereal.
Yeah.
Or could have maybe taken a dry bag of cereal on the way to work as they're rehearsing. But we do see where they decided to continue to listen to worship music even though they weren't able to pray and read like they normally do. And so I mean, I think throughout this whole scenario, the main theme is that this person is learning what it means to prioritize.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you have anything that you would add to that, Matt?
Oh, that's good. I just some of the same things. Prioritization, definitely picked up on that. Also, I think just standing on principle. What I mean by that with the behavior is that even though that there is a daily discipline, number one, because you see that with the person saying that I would usually read the Bible, but because that opportunity was missed, the person didn't neglect the opportunity to spend time with God.
Yeah.
And so. Didn't neglect the priority of God is what I wrote down as a behavior. In other words, didn't let the circumstance dictate the priority. I know that's more of a reprioritization, I guess we could call it, based on.
But even that, reprioritization is like a subset of prioritizing. Like, all right, this didn't happen the way I thought it was. Let's reprioritize in the moment. That's good stuff.
And a skill I thought might be tied to that would be like adaptability.
That's good.
In that situation, how adaptable can I be? In other words, what I really appreciate about this scenario is there was the principle of spending time with God, but being late and these other things didn't neglect the fact that, hey, I can do there's something else that can be done because I'm not going to forego that.
Yep.
I also saw that again when being able to rehearse. I think it was, didn't it say somewhere you rehearse everything you wanted to say? So there was still like, hey, maybe it wasn't the block of time that I wanted to rehearse for example, but I still did the rehearsal part for it. And then a positive mental attitude, again, because like it said, when you got to the office, of course, nervous and feeling unprepared, but giving it your best shot, you know, saying that, hey, I'm going to make the most of what this opportunity is. So I think that's what another thing I wrote from a skill is just that adaptability
That's good.
based on the circumstances.
Yeah, no, that's good. I've got most of that. Rephrase it. Some of it. I put rehearsal, like just like the ability to rehearse is a skill and it's a behavior, like going through the motion and all of it's, like you said, I mean, it's ton of overlap over here. Prioritization, being positive, rehearsal, preparing. In addition to what Adrian had, I put preparation for sleep. Like at what time did you go to, like, were you up watching Netflix all night? Or were you super, super anxious and you went to bed at 9 and you just overslept? There's, who knows what went in. But, the skill you can improve is going to bed on time and waking up on time. But most of these things I had as well. I thought it was a great, adaptability is such a great word. And capitalization is just a great thought. Like, how can I capitalize on the 5 minutes I have right now? How can I make this the best 5 minutes possible? The most productive 5 minutes possible? The most efficient 5 minutes possible? I've never heard it phrased that way, but man, when you said it,
Yeah, because to add to that, it's real easy in that moment. What I appreciate about what you identified, Adrian, is that it's real easy to focus on what's been lost and go down this kind of a cognitive pathway of a downward spiral saying, well, I didn't get to do this, or I don't have time to spend with the Lord, and I may not have time to eat breakfast, and I'm not going to get, I won't have time to rehearse because I'm late. Instead, the ability to be able to say, okay, I am going to capitalize. I'm going to look at this as I do have moments, and what can I do with the moments that I have to best prepare versus trying to just go backwards and say I shouldn't have stayed up all night watching TV or whatever it might have been.
And that goes back to that 70, that 7 out of 10. It's just like, the negative would have went down that path, Matt. But it's just like, nope, I can still capitalize on the moments that I have. And we don't know what happened afterwards. They could have knocked this out of the park because they capitalized on what they did have as opposed to spiraling down an infinite tube of negativity. I think
just that skill of, within that, not getting deep, but within that is just, that's a skill, the ability to look at what I can do versus what's already been lost. To be able to look at it and say, there's an opportunity here, let me figure out what can I do with that opportunity.
That's a great, I don't know what that skill would be. Maybe somebody will put it in the comment section and let us know. But that's a great, don't focus on what's lost, focus on what I have right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that word capitalization. I also like the word, it was one that I said, resourceful.
Yes, you did say that. You sure did.
Just using what you have. So yeah.
No, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. All right, scenario number 3. Scenario number 3, Matt, you want to take this one?
Yes, sir. Scenario number 3. You are consistently late to church on Sunday morning, but you want to start getting there on time.
Okay. I get it.
To correct the behavior of being late, you review your Sunday morning routine. Number 1, you set your alarm 2 hours before church. Number 2, you lay in bed an extra 30 minutes looking at social media. Number 3, you fix breakfast. Number 4, you watch TV. Number 5, you take a shower and get your clothes ready. Number 6, you never factor in the traffic.
Gosh.
So some behaviors to look at here. I guess first, I guess one of the things I think of immediately is the initial attempt here is that there is self-awareness because you're identifying I'm consistently late. So there's self-reflection, there's self-awareness that I identify that. I want to start getting our time. So to correct, I review. So another behavior is that reflection, right? In other words, I'm actually going to list out. I'm listing out almost, I think of like how at times I've done that with like a food journal, for example. I'm going to list out like, okay, what did I eat or what are the steps that I was taking? That's tied to that from a behavior. And then I guess with we can look at I guess you want me to next look at the behaviors within each of the
if you
things?
want to.
Okay.
Like if you look at number 1, there's, like you said, there are behaviors within the behavior.
Sure. So let's see. First behavior I would look at, you set your alarm 2 hours before church. So, there's preparation here. And then you lay in bed an extra 30 minutes looking at social media. So one of the things I started to feel here, even as I was reading this, is there's kind of a give and take, or kind of I'm picturing like on the playground, the old seesaw or teeter-totter back and forth, where it's kind of like I did set my alarm 2 hours before, but it's because of that, what am I now doing with the 2 hours before? So from a behavior standpoint, I think there's a little bit of self-sabotage that that might happen for me if I'm not used to having extra time and then I have extra time. So I'm just being aware of maybe I could self-sabotage in that situation. Fixing breakfast, I'm still keeping my priorities. That's obviously something I need to do within those 2 hours. Then it kind of goes back again to watching TV. I'm kind of back on that seesaw, where I'm kind of like, okay, I've got time, but I think sometimes we mislead ourselves because we have the time. I'm getting into that. So from a behavior standpoint, I think it's just self-discipline also. Like, what's my self-discipline within that behavior? You take a shower. I think that's just back to priorities, eating and taking a shower. And then not factoring in traffic is just, I think it's the opposite of that. I think from a behavior standpoint, that's kind of a blind spot. From a behavior standpoint, maybe that's tied to what are the X factors that, that I don't really look at when I go into it. So skill-wise, going back through there, I think there's a I think behavior, I know there's an overlap, but I think a self-awareness skill is definitely a skill that they're working on by identifying consistently late and want to get better at it. I think another skill is just time management inside of this. I think also the ability to prioritize with time and then reprioritize, based on, okay, in other words, if I went back to this list and said, maybe you still want to look at the social media, but you got to give up the watching TV, type thing, or vice versa, so that I can get to church on time.
I would add
Go ahead.
also with the behaviors, it's just this very laissez-faire type of, all right, got up, what can I do? And so what would be the skill to combat that?
Lax. That's you're very lax with it. And so it's like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
maybe being more intentional, like just intentionality. I have to build the skill of intentionality. Maybe.
I think that's probably the bigger one. Like you said, there's subsets, I'm sure, but I'm thinking of really the self-discipline. In other words, the self-discipline that says if I really want to get to church on time, I have to have the self-discipline to say I do have to remove something, right? Okay. So there's a self-discipline element to that. I know there's a lot of other skills tied to that.
Yep.
But I think really for me, I'm thinking of putting myself, okay, I've got to have the self-discipline that when I wake up and I do have these 2 hours, that there's the self-discipline that something does have to be, I have to give something up to get to church on time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So, as you say that, Matt, what came to my mind, and I think this is the track you were on, Adrian, was it's like I have to have my desires met. I have to have what I want met. And so if you just took out the social media, I just would believe that you would get to church. Like if I just stopped watching, stop looking at social media. But there's this mindset or mentality of I want to do what I want to do right now. Yeah. And I don't know what that is particularly.
I was really because I have been this person, right? Okay.
I have too.
I'm typically just thinking, like, just laying. Yep. But the person that is just like, well, I got up 5 hours early. I'm going to be on time. I just know I'm going to be on time. And then I look up and I'm like, how in the world did 8 o'clock get here? Yep. And so I'm like, I think that this person did make a good first step in, like you said, Matt, with the reflection. Mm-hmm. Like, what is my time going to? Even though I have set out time to be on time, what is my time going to? Mm-hmm. And so now I'm like, okay, now that I see this, what do I take steps further to fill in blocks for these times? So even though I woke up, let's say the person was supposed to be at church at 10, because they woke up 2 hours early. So I wake up at 8 o'clock and I laid there till 8:30. Now because I know that this is so bad because this person is consistently late, I now set blocks of time. Okay, for the first 30 minutes, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm combing my hair, I'm putting my clothes on. Like, because those things shouldn't take maybe more than 30 minutes. And so now, what is that skill called where you're feeling it? I mean, I guess you said the word being intentional,
but even reprioritization. As you were talking, what just occurred to me is that this person could still do all these things, if they just rearranged the order in which they did them. Let's say they just took the shower first. That's the first thing that they did, and then they drove to church, or they took the shower, ate breakfast, and then drove to church. I guess you couldn't watch TV. Well, you could watch YouTube instead, I guess. But you could, after you do those three things, you could literally drive to the church parking lot and just sit in the parking lot for another 30 minutes or another hour if you wanted to, and look at YouTube and watch and get on social media. So what I'm saying is, it is intentionality, but it could even be, I think it's still reprioritization or rearranging. You could just what if I just rearrange them? And that just takes a certain level of situational awareness. Maybe that might be a core thing, like just situational, like what's going on here in this situation. Okay. And then from there, I can get to church on time, because ultimately they're trying to get to church on time.
Well, and I agree. I was going to add to that too. I was also thinking through the lens of sacrifice. And what I mean by sacrifice is that you could do all of these things, but if you're doing all those things, waking up 2 hours before, and that you can't hit the deadline, well then what is the time allotted? If you're missing it by 30 minutes, well then, I don't mean to get too practical, but then it's like, well then you need to get up 3 hours before. And you can, in other words, there's still a sacrifice some way. It's either you're going to have the skill of saying, I'm going to sacrifice one of these things I'm not going to do if I'm going to wait and get up 2 hours before. Or if I want to do all these things, and that's going to require 2.5 hours, well, then I need to get 3 hours before church so that I... Well, then you got to sacrifice. Right? It's a sacrifice either way, if you want to get better.
This person would get up 3 hours, and then that 30 minutes would go to an hour. And then
I see what you're saying.
I do too.
From watching TV to playing the game.
Fair enough.
That's great, because you think about it, they're getting up 2 hours early already. And so it's like...
You still can't get there on time.
Yeah, so the sacrifice, what do I need to sacrifice in that 2 hours? And so it's a
I would also say, I would add this, is that it's also a skill of learning the importance of something.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And
that was one of the main things, because they recognized.
Because this person, because they're consistently late, they maybe they don't, what's the word I'm looking for? Value. Mm-hmm. They don't value other people's time. They don't value maybe worship or church as much as they think they do. Mm-hmm. Maybe there are just a few different things that they don't value. And so I feel like the skill would have to address that undercurrent of what's really going on here.
What do I really value?
Yes, because we can see what they value. They value entertainment.
Yeah. Man.
That's some type of, I don't know what behavior that would be classified
Probably
as.
self-indulgence.
Or selfishness and self-indulgence.
Self-indulgence.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, after I recognize, okay, I have this behavior where I like to self-indulge, now the skill needs to be, okay, how can I taper this back?
How can I think others first? Just think about other people. Like if you just think about being in church on time, if you've ever been on part of any church staff in any way, shape, or form, everybody's blessed when people are on time.
Yeah.
Everybody is. And if you don't know that,
in any industry.
In any industry, you're right. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. And so, but you have to take so it's just selfishness. So you have to have an others first mindset. That would be the skill to help you get out of that. How can I think about other people?
Even still, I think that's the behavior. Because now I'm changing my behavior from me being self-indulgent to me thinking about others. But now I think the skill has to be, okay, I'm going to think others first, and I need to list, or I need to make time to intentionally think about all the people and all the things that are affected when I am not on time. And think about myself and how I'm affected when other people are not on time. Or if it's a time thing, if it's not a time thing, other areas that I get frustrated in, because my thing could not be time. My thing could be the way something is done when people don't do things the way it's supposed to be done. Then I have to start doing some self-awareness, and I have to be empathetic.
That was gold. And I thought of Jesus when he said, treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And if you just adopted that right there, if I was doing anything, would I want people to be consistently late for what I did?
Yeah.
And then and it goes also into our beliefs. Like your beliefs drive your behaviors, and so you have to start challenging certain beliefs that you have as well. But what you just said was wonderful, and it just made me think of if you just do that, start thinking, treat others how you want to be treated, that'll start to motivate you in the right direction.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful. Anything else with this one?
Yes, sir.